Hello everyone, welcome. I'm Heather Carlile, and it's my delight to be broadcasting live tonight, question and answer. So if you have a question at any time, please type it to me and I'll do what I can to give you my thoughts. Right now I am focusing on my book, Rebuilding Trust, How Couples Can Start Over. So in that subject, one of the concerns is we don't want couples to have to rebuild trust. There is the most recent statistics I know, our country spends $28 billion every year because of divorce. And couples spend anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 on average because of a divorce. Well, that's also then not even looking at the costs for our people, their heartbreak, their turmoil, their stressors, what happens to us if we're kids and involved in that. So it's very complex and it's very meaningful. So it's worth my time and your time, and I'm exploring it so that we can make sense of it. Because if we can make sense of it, then we can stop it. Then we can have great marriages that last and that create great families and make happy and smart and successful kids. So tonight I'm going to talk about a piece of that, and it's a very unpopular piece. So when I talk about this particular aspect, a lot of times I'm not very popular because I'm asking people to move against one of the typical rules of thumb in our culture. And of course, it's about marriage, and it's about marriage when we're too young. Now, let me say, first of all, some people get married very, very young, and they have a fantastic marriage. It lasts their entire life. They have great kids, they have a great home, and it works out kind of like our ideal, like we would like it for people. However, most of the people that have a problem in their marriage or have a betrayal or a broken trust, usually it's because of immaturity, of things that we needed to develop and learn, and somehow or another, and there are, dozens of reasons why, we skipped steps or we got off track doing something instead. And so I wanted to talk about what we know in psychology today, and we do know what's generally good for most people. We do know how to prevent getting into a relationship that's probably not going to last at a quality level for a long period of time. So if I'm going to talk about that subject, that means where does marriage, where does an intimate relationship fit in the journey of life? And of course, everybody's different, but there are patterns, because mostly, and people don't like me for this, I think that marriage is for adults, for grown-ups. And if we look at certain parts of our culture, many of us, frankly, just don't want to be a grown-up. We don't want to grow up. We don't want to be responsible. And usually that's for very good reasons, and reasons that come from what we saw and what we estimated or what we thought about grown-ups. And there, for us as grown-ups, whichever grown-ups I'm talking to, I know that my job is to have a great life as a grown-up, so that looking like an adult is an attractive thing, is an exciting thing, not something to be dreaded or avoided. So, and please type in a question at any time you want to ask me something, and it doesn't have to be on topic. I'm here for you. That's why I'm live, and I love that. Okay, so we start right at the bottom line. There's a chart on the back of my private practice door that my clients have all seen, and it's just drawn by hand. It's about purpose and mission. So I make a distinction for people between our purpose and our mission. I say that our purpose is to grow ourselves. Our mission is to serve humanity. And that is quite tightly connected with some of my favorite models or teachings in the world of psychology. I wanted to put on one piece of paper the whole picture of what a healthy human being could possibly develop if their life was conducive to developing all of the different aspects that we as people carry. It took me many years to be satisfied with it so that I felt comfortable using it in public. It looks like this. So if you email me or you respond to this broadcast tonight, this is what I call the building blocks of a healthy life. So it goes like this. These shapes up here along the side, those are the basic 7 abilities that we want to develop, and we want to make sure that our kids develop. And of course, they build the first one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and that's part of developmental psychology. And then the second column is purpose. So the first one is identity, second one is purpose, and the third one is mission. So grow yourself, master your skills, and implement them to serve humanity or make a difference in the world with the talents that you have. I kind of did a little dance when I first encountered one of my heroes' books called Drive. The author is Daniel Pink, like the color. He's gifted in the corporate world, and he outlines in the book Drive, which of course is on motivation, 3 true motivators for us. And I was so delighted because it matched my model. Because he says the three of the basic motivators we have, and we all know these, it's not rocket science. Number 1, autonomy. Please give me autonomous freedom to be true to myself, and then, I will be motivated. I'm excited about doing what it is that's true to me. Then the second one is mastery, which means give me lessons. Give me a teacher. Give me an opportunity to practice so that those talents that I have, I can get good at it. Then the third one is meaning. If it doesn't have meaning for me, why would I bother? And if it does have meaning, I'll give you the shirt off my back, so to speak. So that's identity, purpose, and mission. Help me be true to myself, my own identity, and help me grow it. Help me master it. Help me in my purpose to grow myself, which means through the lifespan, all the way through our later years, we can learn and grow and become a better person. And goodness knows, we love those people who show us how it's done with such grace and bravery. And then, of course, my mission. If I have talents and I'm a healthy person, I want to help out. I want to make a difference. I want to use my talents for something meaningful, something worthwhile. And hopefully it makes a difference in the world. And if it's my job, I am paid for it because what I do is valuable. Or I'm loved for it. And we could go down that road for a long period of time too, couldn't we? So I've got somebody saying hello and another one saying hello. So thank you. Hello. Thank you for chiming in. I love it that I have verbal companions. So now, how do we relate this to rebuilding trust in relationships when couples have to start over? Well, if we don't have all of those abilities developed, then what we bring to a relationship or an intimate relationship or a marriage, it isn't fully present, developed, or integrated in who we are. If we get into relationships that last for a long period of time, very young, oftentimes, especially through our 20s, we're growing and we're clumsy, we're trying things, doing different things, and we change. Hopefully we're learning identity, all of those building blocks. We're trying them out and finding them, because this is one of the things that's not commonly known. Our brain really doesn't finish developing, which means growing, learning, the different parts of the brain coming online and us using them, until we're about between 30 and 33. We do have abilities today to scan brains and know about neuroplasticity and how brains change and grow. We used to think that we were kind of a grown-up by the time we got to be 18. Well, not so. And there is a wonderful professor in Austin, Texas. She's done the research, the brain scans, and written the seminal work on the development of the adolescent brain. And adolescence, in my view and how I teach it, lasts from 13 to 30. That's the time when we're most busily and intensely growing our brains and our abilities and our identity, our personality. So really the first adulthood starts between 28 and 30. And if you're over 30 and you think back, like when I first learned this for myself, what was I doing? What was it like when I was about 28 or 30? And oftentimes it's a time when we kind of wake up or we get serious and we start thinking, I thought I was going to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. I thought 30 was grown up and was boring, but here I am, and it's important to me. So when I was between 28 and 30, I was living in California, and I decided to end my life there and move to Texas. I got a different job. So I started in my new trajectory of life that kind of was my choice. I was no longer kind of going from thing to thing and learning and growing. I decided this is where I wanted to be, and voila, I'm still here. So when we're thinking about growing up, and especially concerning relationships, I wanted to be able to teach that so it makes sense. And most everybody knows, and especially in psychology, we know about Ericksons' developmental stages of life. And this is classically what it looks like. And if you want to text me or email me, I'm happy to send it to you. I've had actually colleagues in different states contact me and ask me if they can use, because I'm a good typesetter. So it looks good. So this looks at, from birth to death, the stages of development. Well, when I started to look at the problems in our relationships, and it made me very sad, we have about a 50 to 65% divorce rate. And the biggest cost in that is not only the lifestyle, because then the home is split, the money is split, there are hard feelings, but the children. What happens to us as kids if our parents divorce is devastating, because we're in a growth state. We want, as little kids, to be developing all those parts of our brain ourselves and practicing and getting good at being ourselves. And then there's a bump in the road and we lose our family. There are many costs to that. different ways that they show up. And that's a whole nother subject to talk about that's extremely complex. And I've seen dozens of things that are a result of that. And of course, people love their kids and they make the best of it. But I would rather that kids keep their family and their mom and dad and them together. It's what we all thrive with. So then I wanted to look at what is it that our kids really need, and then how do we grow them so that they get into a great relationship. So first of all, we want them to grow up and know who they are, the sense of their own identity, which means this is my unpopular opinion, marriage really is for adults, not teenagers. And we're not an adult until we're about 30, and people don't like that, but that's just the way we work. So I want to know, what is it that our kids really need? And my favorite source of that is absolutely phenomenal. If you want to go and check out the Search Institute, it's Search-Institute. And it's also the website called Parent Further for Parents. But the Search Institute has done probably the best research in the English-speaking world that I know of. And it's called the Asset Approach. It's the 40 developmental assets that all of us need to develop. And they've articulated that at an age-appropriate description so that parents know exactly how much little toddlers, how much middle schoolers, how much adolescents, what it looks like. So there are 40 assets, there are 10 internal things we need to develop, and 20 external things we need to develop. So we want our kids to develop those so that they grow up to be healthy and happy and have a great life. But if there is a significant bump in the road, then developing those assets is going to be disturbed, and a lot of families don't even know what's missing. So we know how to look at that, and we have quizzes for it to help parents see what's working well and what's missing for them. In the beginning, we also want to know which centers of the brain are growing, and I found this absolutely priceless source that's published by one of my favorite places in developmental psychology and taking care of our kids and understanding addiction. And it's a collaboration between the Alberta Family Wellness Institute and Harvard. And so when you go to their websites, and there are journal articles regularly reported on that you can read if you want to. But this is a 64-page color publication, and I have it right here. It's lengthy, it's beautifully done and illustrated, and it is Our Brain, Your Guide. So it shows parents in a very approachable way what it is kids need at each stage of the brain's developing. Now, I'm going to just remind us that I'm talking about rebuilding trust in a relationship. And we have to do that when trust is broken. And if we haven't grown up and we haven't found a way to be in a relationship that's mature and working well, then we're going to experience varying degrees of broken trust. And I help people with that all the time, but I would rather prevent it. So this here is how I've altered. It's got the stages of advancement in life and in relationships. So it's the Ericksons developmental needs pages, of course, but I changed it so that I can teach well in terms of how do we look in relationships? What are our roles in relationships? And notice there's one block pushed to the side. That is adolescence. So I see that we have an early adolescence and a late adolescence. And because we now understand brain development in the adolescent years, it's very dynamic and it's pretty messy. Anyway, adolescence is, in my mind, for adventuring, experimenting. I really want our adolescents, if they can, to have a gap year where they travel, they learn other languages, they learn themselves in different environments with different people, not getting married with a car payment and a house payment like a 40-year-old. So the stage of adolescence is, it's called fidelity. That's faithfulness. But it's not faithfulness to your mate. It's faithful to yourself. Fidelity means, in the adolescent terms, the virtue is fidelity true to oneself and an integrated image of oneself as a unique person. And that means try different roles, get a sense of yourself, and the meaning of life the way it's valuable to you. Now, this is all about developing yourself. It's not about relationships. Not that adolescents and kids and through the lifespan, not that we don't have relationships, all kinds of relationships. But we don't want an intimate relationship which then ends up demanding pieces of us that belong in a marriage or a committed relationship between adults. So early adolescence is 13 to 18, and that's, I call, the teen girl and the teen boy. And this is where they're developing in their family, they're developing because of role models, which is why we want our teenagers to be in lessons with other adults who are teaching things, or in Boy Scouts, or in gymnastics, or sports, or arts. We want them around responsible, talented adults learning from them. So those are role models, of course. We want them to find their peer groups, the kids or the young ones that are like them, where they feel like this is where I belong, this is my tribe, this is my group. And out groups, the groups that are not like them, where they don't belong. You know, if you're one of the STEM students, you're not going to be really developing your identity and having a good time if you're in the art club and you can't draw. So in the peer groups, yes, and the out groups don't necessarily mean it's a bad out group. It's just not suited to you in terms of what you want to be developing at that time. That's the time when we have a crisis or what we could think of as a rebellion, where we're saying to ourselves, who am I and what is my purpose? What am I here to grow? What are my talents? And the rebellion, if you're in a happy, healthy family with happy, healthy grown-ups, your rebellion is not against your parents. It's not against your family or your neighborhood. Your rebellion is against what you see in the world that breaks your heart or gives you outrage. You know, the things where people are mistreated, or animals are mistreated, or people have organized themselves and something isn't working very well, or it's a third world country and there's a problem with water. Things like that is what we want our young ones to rebel against. Not their own families, not their own parents, not their friends. So we don't want bullying. We don't want prejudice. And if our families access the good things that are available in most good cities, we can prevent that. So then, that's early adolescence. Now, what's late adolescence? Late adolescence is 19 to 28. Remember, the brain doesn't really finish developing until we're 30, 33 years old. So late adolescent, now this is adolescent youths, and I call this the knight and the damsel. This is a commitment to meaning and to direction. Now that they've rebelled and say, for example, they're saying it's not right for little kids to be taken away from their families and put in boarding schools. And so they're rebelling against that and saying, let's keep our kids and their families. Now, I'm just making this up as I go along, right? So then they make a commitment in some way or another to helping out with that in the world. So it's like a commitment to meaning and direction. What do I stand for? How can I fit into the adult world? Because now I know what I stand for and I want to make a difference with it. I've got some mastery of my skills. What do I do for my mission? Isn't that elegant? It's natural, it's beautiful, it's meaningful, it works. So now, the knight and the damsel, do we want them to get married? No. Because the knight and the damsel still live with their moms and dads. The knight has a great horse, but guess what? It belongs it's his dad's best horse, and his dad did buy his armor for him. And the damsel, she still lives with her mom and dad, and she's still learning how to grow up and be a woman. So do we want those two to get married? We want them to have fun together and enjoy each other, but to quote-unquote settle down and to have babies, they're not ready for that. We want them to adventure, to try stuff out, to find the things that are meaningful in the world to them. So this is what's unpopular, because our culture tells our kids that they should get married and they should have kids. I think that's a large part of it. Not all of us do. But I want our kids, when they decide to get married, I want them to be grown-ups, where they really know themselves. They've got a good skill set developed. They've got places where they're making a difference in the world. They know who they are. They know the kind of people they want as their own tribe, their neighborhood, where they want to live, what they want to be doing. So, when the knight and the damsel get together, the knight might like skiing and the damsel might like gardening. But because they're young and they're enthusiastic, she goes to find skiing and he goes to help her with gardening. But if they get together too young and then as they grow up, he really wishes he had a wife who loved skiing too. And she really wishes that she had a husband who really loves gardening too, not just kind of making the gesture. So that's a simplistic example, but you understand. I'm going to say over here, I'm going to just say skiing versus gardening. Both of those things are great. And some people have a great passion for each of those things. And we want to continue that and have a best friend and lover as our spouse to share that. However, if we get married too young and we haven't grown up yet, and when we grow up into things that we really love, it breaks my heart when I can't tell you how many couples have come to me. Lovely people. They've been married since their teen years or their early 20s. They have 2 or 3 beautiful children, and they just don't have the same interests. They kind of like each other, but they've lost that romantic bond, and they really don't want to be married anymore because they have different interests and a different style of living. And then at that point, they need to decide, are we going to get a divorce and split our family up? Or are we going to like it and lump it? That's an extremely difficult position to be in. So of course, I'm going to mentor them however is right for them and figure out how to make a lovely life even though they're not sharing their greatest passions with each other. But I always think, what if they had not gotten married and not had children so young, and they'd found more of themselves enjoyed each other, but waited to get married until they were truly adults. So that's my very unpopular opinion, that marriage really is for grown-ups. And if we could develop ourselves fully, then a lot of the problems in rebuilding trust would never occur. We would make mistakes, but we wouldn't break trust so significantly. And so when I'm working with people to rebuild after a betrayal, one of the most important things that we need to do is understand, so that we can be kind, so that we're not blaming and we're not judging, and we're not making somebody wrong for their mistakes, because it doesn't help. So understanding why we make mistakes is something that I'm devoted to doing, because we can figure it out. If given enough information, I can most of the time really understand it. Sometimes it takes me a while. But understanding usually goes back, not always, but usually goes back to something that was undeveloped in adolescence that now needs to be developed or has developed in a new direction. And then the person is unhappy or feeling unloved or feeling depressed or anxious or lost and just not sure why life is empty or not enough. And then, of course, vulnerable to things outside their life, their home, their family, that are going to feed their soul in a way that's true to them, or a compensatory way that may be self-numbing or self-medicating or exciting, that because it isn't in the marriage and the home that they have. So someone just typed me a question, and thank you. I was married at 24, I thought, for my lifetime. My parents were married 64 years, but after 2 children, my spouse left and eventually divorced. That was 25 years ago. It really caused tremendous pain. I'm so sorry. That's an example, isn't it? Thank you so much for sharing that piece of your story and for mirroring. This is a hard lesson, and it's one that's taught by our culture in so many ways. But I will have to go in the face of the culture and teach what I know is right, good, and true, what is healthy. Thank you for tuning in with me tonight. My view is, know yourself, treasure life, and love others. And with that, I'll say good night.